Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our May 2025 Idea Jam. My name is Stan Baines, and I'm your chair for this evening and a committee member for the Canadian Network for Imagination and Creativity, or CNIC for short. My fellow committee members and friends in imagination are scattered about on your screen, so if you could, committee, give us a wave, let everybody know who you are. Perfect. It is always a great pleasure and joy to be back in this hour-long gathering place in our video conferencing world to share with you our different topics from our hosts and guests, and then to the open discussions that happen with you afterwards. We look forward to doing this each month with you all year long, and we are happy to do it this month again. Our goal here at CNIC is to find new ideas, to see things from different perspectives, and ask questions and explore our inner innovation and imagination. We seek to understand, reignite, and share our imagination and creativity from the different backgrounds we come from, the different angles that we see from, and to create and foster open, forward-thinking dialogue with the hope that we leave here each time more inspired. We feel that through our discussions that we have at each event that we can expand our minds in new directions, collaborate through idea sharing, create partnerships in our differences, in our sameness, and in our beliefs, and then carry forward those ideas, thoughts, and actions out into our spheres of influence. We want to find and foster our inner and outer creativity through the exploration of our imaginations and ideas, and do this together with each other in our learning and listening space. At this time, I would like to acknowledge that as a resident of Clarence Rockland, Ontario, which sits just outside of the east end of the city of Ottawa in Ontario, Canada, I'm chairing our meeting on traditional unceded land of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe territory. Our tomorrows together are built on the memories of yesterday, the work of today, and the hope for a better future together. Our Idea Jams is our space to learn, explore, and share. As part of that, we want you to reflect and participate in the way you are most comfortable with and make this idea space your own. We want to hear your ideas through conversation. This is a place where talking your ideas out is what it's all about. Your thoughts, your visions, and your ideas help keep our space moving forward, so this is your time to shine. Our format here is always very simple. Once our hosts guide our discussions for the evening, we will open the floor for you to chat and have conversations to begin and see where the journey will lead us during our time together. Nothing is a bad idea. Every discussion point helps move the idea along. So please take this opportunity to explore and share, as your insights may be the spark that lights somebody else's creativity fire. Zoom obviously is our platform of choice for this discussion, so Zoom allows you to participate in many different ways. It has built-in controls that allow you to raise your hand so we can see you when you wish to join in the conversation. You can add things in our chat function, which helps to keep the ideas and thoughts flowing, and you can share your emotions with the little emotion reactions as well. Share your ideas your way and join in our jam. So, for tonight, we are going to be led by Ming-Yu Lin and her guest, Sharon Johnsey. Tonight, they will be talking about, and as we've been coming up to, ChatGPT for creative writers, how to use ChatGPT to interview your creative mind. So without any more talking from me, let me put it over to you, Ming-Yu, and let's get into this exciting evening.
Thank you, Stan. Hello, everyone. I'm Ming-Yu. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today, and I'm especially excited to introduce my good friend, Sharon Johnsey. Sharon, hi. Sharon is an amazing drama teacher, a writer, and a storyteller. She's currently pursuing her PhD in arts education at Simon Fraser University, and her research explores the connection between AI and education, specifically on how ChatGPT can enhance creative writing. So today, Sharon will be sharing her insights and experiences on how educators can thoughtfully and smartly integrate ChatGPT into teaching and support creativity. Sharon, we are so glad to have you with us today. Now the spotlight is yours.
You say you're so glad. You can't be more glad than I am. Ming-Yu, thank you for this invitation. And thank you, Stan, for facilitating for us. And thank you, everybody, for being together. Lena, you're in St. John. That's where I grew up. What are the chances of that? I'm coming to you from Richmond, British Columbia, yes, that's right, Lena. So the unceded territory of the Coast Salish people. I am right nestled in the Fraser River, the Stolo River. It's where many people groups have stewarded this land, and I'm so grateful to be here. Tonight, I kind of envision this a little bit like a hamburger. You could think of it maybe as a veggie burger if you like. There's a few things that we can go through really quickly and some light and kind of quick ways of using ChatGPT, and then getting into some meat of things that I've worked on for research and other experiments. And if it gets a little bit heady, well, don't worry, because at the bottom we have more fluffy bun, so that would be okay. And we'll stop lots and kind of see where you're at with some questions or comments. One of the biggest challenges is trying to figure out where we are all at with something like ChatGPT. It's not the only GPT out there, but it's definitely the one that has marketed itself very well through OpenAI. And so kind of like the way we call tissues a Kleenex or a Q-tip, right? It's actually a cotton swab, but we'll use ChatGPT to cover sort of a variety, if that's okay with you, what we refer to as large language models. So I'm having trouble doing a screen share tonight because I'm on a browser version. So I have drafted all of my presentation into a PDF form. And so what that means is that Ming-Yu can share with you all of the slides. You can actually click along as I go along or not. Maybe you just, want to just kind of look at what I'm thinking and watch my face as I talk. That's up to you.
Okay,
But if we're looking at the hamburger kind of thing, we'll go through some quick light things first and then some meatier things. So I'm looking at ChatGPT in a creative sort of lens. In essence, we're all teachers, right? In essence, we all wind up being leaders. We all are informing the people around us and learning from the people around us. And so one of the questions becomes, how do we learn together in an imaginative sort of way? Because learning is reciprocal, right? Wherever you're leading and wherever you are participating, we're learning. And there is energy in emerging experiences. What the problem is, we sometimes want to lock everything down. Creative minds, we can envision fantastic learning opportunities. I think we're using ChatGPT in the wrong way, or I use wrong loosely. I mean, like in what it's not actually really good for. What it's really good for, giving us a scaffold so we can be wildly creative. And instead of looking at, well, what can you write for me? Or can you proofread this for me? Let's look at how it can interview us, how it can go plumb the depths of our ideas, bring our ideas in a way that can really help us. I want to say that some of the things that I'll talk about first are really inspired by Universal Design for Learning in BC, where we call it UDL in the classroom. But it really means, how can anybody be included in what I want to talk about? And so for that reason, I'm going to start with 6 ways that ChatGPT can support imaginative teaching. You could call it imaginative leadership. I will use classroom examples, but I trust that with your imagination, you can kind of relay that to your life. So 6, here we go. Number 1, by developing feasible interactive materials. So what I mean by interactive is, I had this idea and I said, what if some students in my classroom were in lit circles, but everybody had a different book? So my idea was, like, they could be cross-pollinating ideas together with, instead of just everybody reading the same book at the same time. We could have sort of a question to gather around and kind of work through, like, what does that mean? In your slideshow, if you're clicking along with the PDF, you would see that I have an example of, I asked ChatGPT, okay, so I have some ideas. How do I make this into like a feasible activity? One of my ideas was, I wanted the students to make a topical 3D map of the room. I want it to be interactive, but I want it to be like a metaphor for what they're learning about in these different books. So I have a screenshot on the next PDF slide that shows what I asked ChatGPT to do and how it turned it into a feasible activity of giving me topographical features that have symbolic meanings and giving me a strategy to bring that to the classroom. So from my kind of wacky idea into a feasible strategy. Number two, that would be upcycling old material through like a new learning goal. So for example, we all have sort of things we love to talk about, or maybe a presentation you've given before, but you really want to make it fresh and new, but you need to bring it through another lens. I'll give you an example. If you're following along on the PDF, I'm looking at case number 2, which is I had a very old presentation and talk about First People's principles of learning. Those are rooted and grounded and something that is not my own, but something that I am very grateful to be able to discuss. And what I wanted to do was give it a visual in a particular art style that could help us enter into these concepts in a visual sort of way, in an artistic sort of way, in a three-dimensional visual. So I've given you kind of a screenshot right there of some of the visuals that I worked with AI to produce all of those paintings based on what I was imagining. So this is a way that I've upcycled old material to kind of, find a new way to enter into it. Which leads me to my third point, really fun one, materializing what is in your imagination. So one of the things that I was teaching this year is the importance of being earnest. Great comedy play. Thank you, Oscar Wilde. However, I needed to be away from the class for a few sessions. Break my heart, because what I really wanted to do was do the character voices and do the interpretations and discuss how the characters work. Well, what ChatGPT did is help me create character kind of in the style of the time period, some paintings. And then I could create these characters with a character bio, and then I could move them around the screen so that they're interacting with each other. Now, what's in my imagination and what I would normally put in, like in physical embodiment when I'm teaching, because I wasn't able to be there, I could relay a lot of that information in a new visual that the visiting teacher could do. Certainly not the same experience, but I certainly think it's a valuable experience, and we do perk up when we see some visuals. So here's my fourth. I love ChatGPT to find my blind spots. It's like one of the best ways that ChatGPT can get behind and help me do a shoulder check. So I've got point number 4 here. Pose questions to shoulder check your blind spots. So I created a family power dynamics unit. We were learning the glass menagerie and some short stories, family power dynamics, and we're digging into this. This is really exciting stuff. I asked ChatGPT to look at my lesson plans and say, like, what am I missing? What am I not seeing? What might my students be wondering or be confused about, right? And you could do this if you're a leader in any way, like thinking about who are your audience, who are the people that you're communicating with. GPT can find those blind spots. And so if you're on the PDF, you can see that there's some examples, right? Some of the things that chat was asking me back is, are we just analyzing power in families, or are we supposed to think about how we use power too? Gave me all kinds of ways that I could shoulder check and look at how else can I tackle this same material. Number 5 is assisting students with depth of thinking. Oh, I was so excited. I had created this really cool assignment. At least I thought it was really cool. A social justice infographic where they would pursue a social justice issue of their choosing and then kind of do a deep dive into getting some research and how are they going to organize and explain this. Yay! I'm so excited. And I have students like really diving into this, except one student, she's like, I don't get it. So I pull up a chair, sit down beside him. We're like talking it through. And she's struggling. How do I understand what questions to ask? I give her some examples of ways that she could. Her topic was vulnerable women finding some shelter. I gave her some ideas of things, and she's like, okay, I can look that up, but that's not what I wanted. I don't want her to look up what I was asking. I had my buddy, ChatGPT, go over to my desk, and I said, how can I get a framework for her so she can enter into this content? Because after I'd spent about 20 minutes with her, I realized like I have all these other students. So chat helped me out by giving a framework that she could use to enter into like starting developing deeper thinking. So when I could come back, I could kind of nurture her along in the process. So it brought her up to speed to where a lot of her peers were, which leads me to bridging materials for specific interests. I'm teaching dystopian lit. Anthem, 1984, Brave New World. Woo! I'm so excited. I have this lesson about perception versus reality. How do we know what we perceive? Is it real? Oh, I'm so excited. I come to my grade 11s and I'm like, like when on social media something's posted, but then later you find out like it wasn't the whole story. Nothing. Crickets. They can't relate. I'm like, what? I thought this was such a great lesson plan. I thought it was so loaded. So that night I go back to ChatGPT. I said, I need to speak their language. I need to know where their entry points are. And Chat said, ask them to start with buzzwords. So the next class, I had them write all over the whiteboard, like, what are the buzzwords? And I wrote up a couple. I don't even know what these mean. I write up Riz. I like, tell me what that means, right? Suddenly, that's the key. We start talking about slang. We start talking about TikTok reels. We start talking about how things are truncated by emojis, which is just like newspeak. You only get this much to talk. Well, ChatGPT was the bridge, right? To get what was in my mind and my imagination to connect with what was in their mind and their imagination. And then the next class just exploded. It just exploded. So I'm at a point right now where I can stop for a second and just kind of see like where you are at. If you have questions so far, my next talking point is, what is ChatGPT and how does it work? Do we have an analogy for how it all types in? But we can pause here if you have any waving hands of questions.
Sure, I'm sorry that I cannot share the file. It doesn't
Oh,
allow me to do it, so we're trying to fix it. You can continue. Sorry.
okay,
So we're
okay.
trying to fix
Well,
it.
we can send it. If we have people's contact info, we'll send it then too. What do you think, folks?
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, I'll do that. Well, do you remember where you were the first time you heard about ChatGPT? Or the first time you tried it? Do you have that kind of in your mind? Do you remember? Oh, I see Fred. Fred's got a question.
Well, it's more of an observation that I remember coming into it and still thinking more of a search engine and not grasping that it's a superpower. It's a way to enhance yourself. And when you were talking frameworks, I was thinking about the times when I'm interacting with it, thinking about, okay, I've got this discussion coming up. What might they be thinking? And it provided amazing frameworks for me to think about what they might be thinking. And then I could ask the AI for how I could prompt them to gather the ideas. But when you were talking, I I was a resource teacher last week, and they're still doing chrysalids and Lord of the Flies that I did in high school over 50 years ago, and it's the same two books. I could go into a chat and say, uh, take this book. Are there other books that cover the same theme? And it would open up for me great ways to broaden that, because as a teacher, I couldn't imagine teaching exactly the same thing for 38 years and even the same questions. No, get the creativity and imagination going. And so your ideas are excellent.
Yeah, I so resonate with what you're saying, Fred, about finding perspectives, like having us like think about perspectives going into conversations or teaching modes. I like it increases our empathy really when we're using chat well. Like it can teach us how to see from multiple points of view. So yeah, a search engine. So Fred, one of the things at the bottom of the screen, there's different modes you can go into now. Like there is a search mode and there's a deep research mode. And then there's just the standard chat mode. And I was so confused when I first started with ChatGPT because I also thought like, oh, I type in a question and it's going to give me an answer. So if you guys would allow me, I'd love to give you an analogy that helped me understand how this all worked. This is how I got started in ChatGPT. OpenAI released it in December of 2022. I was working for a writing academy where we taught writing. My boss called me up and he said, "Your job is on the line. Our company is on the line. There's this new thing on the block. Not only will it do all the writing, but nobody is going to have to write anymore. So I want you to go find out how this is going to take over our jobs and write a, take over our company." As a creative writer and as a teacher of writing, I had both my dukes up. I was not very happy going into to ChatGPT and some of the other GPTs. So that was right at its early inception, January of 2023. So what happens when you type in a prompt, and what happens when it spits something out? I'm going to consolidate for you in about 30 seconds what took me about 7 months of deep dive technical language study that I was working on for my PhD. I'm just going to boil it down into an image that I use. Here you go. You go into your house and there's going to be a wild card game, okay? We have about 12 players. Imagine that each of these players at a card game have a different set of rules. All right, each player is going to play these cards according to a different set of rules. Now, where do they get the rules from? I don't know about you, but I struggle if there's like 4 pages of rules to a Milton Bradley game. I'm like, 4 pages is too much. So I'm not a big rules reader, but imagine these players coming to the game and they're going to read the entire works of Shakespeare, all the sonnets, every single play, all the way through. And each one of these players is going to read it for a different reason, right? They're going to have a different rule set. One is going to look at like the word order. Someone else is going to look at like lemmatizing a word. What is its bare minimum, and et cetera, et cetera. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say the entire works of Shakespeare? My bad. I meant the entire works of Shakespeare 419,000 times. Reading the entire works of Shakespeare 419,000 times. That was the scraped data off of all the internet, all the encyclopedias ever written, all the Reddit posts, all of the movie reviews, everything. So if you want to guess how big the works of Shakespeare 419,000 times is, print it off. Let's print it off in paper. We're going to be able to fill a transit bus from its front to its back, from its floor to its ceiling 11 times. Okay. 11 transit buses, floor to ceiling, back to front. Okay, so every player in this room has read that much data and has this set of rules, this set of rules, this set of rules. Okay, now they're all in your house. They're in your dining room. There they are, these crazy smart people, right? And you're typing, here comes my prompt. Oh, I'm going to send it to you. And these little words, they slide in on a conveyor belt. And now all these players start moving the cards around. All right, there they go, super fast. What they're doing is they're playing these different rules according to all these parameters. The word cards, I use word loosely, the token cards. There's roughly 415 billion cards in the vault that they can play. So as they're moving all of these around to try to understand what it is you're asking, they're all playing, moving your question around and moving your prompt around. Then they're going to respond to it. So now you need to imagine that your dining room has an upstairs and side rooms and a downstairs. I like to use a glass house kind of image. In fact, I like to make the walls like Jell-O because the players can reach through the other rooms. Okay, so now we're playing these card games with little workshops, right? There's little working teams. Because all of these strategists are playing at the same time, lightning fast, faster than we can even blink, they line up a bunch of token cards and they come back down the conveyor belt and these words appear on your screen. All right, here's the magic. The magic is the meaning is here in the mind of the reader. What they're replicating is the Alan Turing test is, can they create a facsimile of language that can fool somebody to not being able to differentiate, right? That's the Turing test. Is it human? Is it not human? That was the artificial intelligence. Could it appear? Could it be a facsimile? When we read, we go, oh, this has meaning. This makes sense. And then we read along and we're like, what? That doesn't make sense. We poorly coined it hallucinating, when the cards would go down the wrong path, when the cards would get mixed up, when things would like replicate themselves, because some part of the workshop was like, oh sure, we'll just keep talking that Doris Day was a president. Sure, we'll just keep down that thought. It's written so convincingly. Now, over time, as all of us as users were part of the beta testing and we used it collectively, we were ironing out some of these things. We were helping to hone this process. A lot of ethical issues were embroiled in that, in terms of, did people know they were part of that honing process, and what data was scraped and used for this. And then different areas of OpenAI worked on some of the protocols and locking down some of those extra rooms. So that's kind of how it works in a nutshell. And it's important, I think, for users to know that when I'm sending this down the conveyor belt, it's going to be broken apart. And then what comes back to me is going to be related to how these pieces were pulled apart. So I did a lot of talking again, so I'll pause now. I don't know, any questions or comments there? Does that help you understand the process a little bit?
Yeah, and I'll just chime in. Thank you so much for that wonderful set of images, because on one hand, the effects and sort of the engagement with ChatGPT and machine learning systems are so immediate, because we ask these questions and out come seemingly out of nowhere these responses, and we can't help but wonder where they're actually coming from. And I think you illustrated that very beautifully, that there is all this shuffling in the background, a furious, very fast series of shuffling, working on this very large data set, and that in some sense they're representing information that, as you say, is meaningful for us. It seems to make sense, and so therefore we think it makes sense, but in fact it's just kind of aligning things in its attempt to kind of, as you said, respond to our query. I think what I find particularly interesting in your examples is how, you know, I really feel that you're challenging how we think about interacting with these systems, because perhaps, listening to your examples, maybe perhaps we're thinking about it in a perhaps too much of a direct way, or maybe a naive way, kind of saying, "Oh, please write an essay for me," or please write this letter," or something. Whereas your examples sound so much more interesting and compelling because it could be used as a writer's tool, as a research tool, to reveal blind spots, as you suggest. And that to me seems to have so much more value, and it's so much more interesting. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you, Corin. Can I jump off that a little bit more? And part of the research that I did last year, and in the very near future, planning to write up the results of the research, is I wanted to see, this is my question, could ChatGPT scaffold creative writers with neurodivergence? What I wanted to know is, what were the barriers for some creative minds to come into writing? And could we get ChatGPT to be organizing, making some framework? There was a lot of strategies that we used. I had 6 amazing participants. So I worked very closely with 6 individuals. And so what's really amazing is that these individuals opened up their process. I was given just such the lovely and just privilege of sitting alongside writers. Here's how it went down. One by one, I would sit down with the writer and I would say, "What do you love about writing? Tell me, like, what do you love about, what's your daydream? What would you love to write? Are you working on anything?" And I would say, what's hard about it? What's difficult? What's getting in the way? And then we get a little bit deeper and we'd get more specific. All 6 of them very quickly revealed to me like what their official barriers were, and all 6 of them have told me I can freely talk about that. So we had one person on the autism spectrum, one person with debilitating ADHD, 2 people with severe concussion, another person with a mood disorder, and then another person with a ADHD and mood disorder combination. Okay, so we're ranging in age from 20s to 60s. So we had like lovely participation. What I did after I had all this information and heart to heart, really specific things, I went back to my own personal chat GPT and I created hypothetical situations so that I could do some prompt engineering without giving any clues at all about what their hope was for writing project. I replicated it in a different way, but I worked through prompt engineering really specifically with scaffolding. When I did that, we were able to, what emerged very quickly was the process of having chat interview the creative mind in light of a framework, such as one person was working on a screenplay, another person was working on a fantasy novel, and another person was working on creating a fantasy dialect. They wanted a working dialect to install in their fantasy world. So just to kind of give you a summary of how we did this, and then in my notes that will come to you, I have little ways that you can do this too. So our prompt engineering, our lists were very long because our scaffolding needed to be really robust. But for you and I, we can sit down and we can say something along the line of this. I want to write choose your genre, choose your format. I want to write a fantasy novella, and you can describe it a little bit. Your job, and you need to be like super specific with Chat GPT, is to never write, but only ask questions. You will ask one question at a time, then stop until I have responded. You will look at my response and see areas where I could expound or need backstory or need world building or like whatever it is that you want chat to do for you. You set those parameters really clearly, make that protocol like very, very strong. What happens next, we found with all of our participants, is it did this. It did this. So it would say, and again, I'm gonna give you a little fun anecdote. A couple of my participants used nicknames back and forth. They had a nickname for their ChatGPT, and they named themselves. It was kind of a fun little interplay. But they would say, you know, my little chat buddy, like, here's all my information, and I want to write this story about. Chat looks at this and says, what an interesting choice that Uncle Dan made. Why did he do that? Well, I'll tell you. Goes the creative writer. Oh, yeah. And they say, fascinating. Were there any other choices that he could have made, but he decided not to? Yes. Boom, 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 goes the creative writer. In the background, depending on what the creative writer needs, Chat is actually organizing this into a novella structure or into a screenplay structure, right? And working through, like, if you're looking at major screenplay, you're like, okay, what's the inciting incident? You know, what is our moment of truth? Where are we changing worlds, right? And Chat can do this for an individual who wants to plumb the depths of their imagination, but needs that that freedom to be able to be creative. Fred's got another question. Oh, this is exciting. Oh, there's a whole bunch here. Okay, what do we see here? Yeah. Okay. So Fred's got a comment here where it says, when you go back and forth multiple times, it learns who you are and it can start to counsel you and does it quite well. Comment on that really quickly. Here is a fun thing that you can try. Ask if you've been interacting with Chat for a little while, or I'm using Chat again. It could be any other of the GPT tools. Ask it to describe a typical day for you. What do I typically do in a day? And how do I feel about the tasks that I do? And you could be surprised if you've been working with Chat for quite a while. It might know quite a lot about you. For me, it was very revealing because it knew a lot about certain things about like how I teach, and it would say things about my personality because it knew I was asking often. It's important to remember, I do have a strong caveat for all of us to remember that into the big world, you're dropping some of your life. It's like having a conversation at the mall or on Facebook or out there, because it is possible that ChatGPT can take these ideas. So if you are writing your treasured novel, right, you may want to do that offline. You can get it, you get your ideas going, but make sure there's nothing on there that you wouldn't like just kind of like talk about when you're out in the big wide conversational world. Anybody could overhear, you know, that cup of coffee conversation where you tell your great plot of your screenplay. Is the same thing. Chat could grab bits of that and they could be gone. So that's your caveat, and I work through that with my participants as well. But so yeah, but you can ask it things like if I were a character in a novel, what would I be doing? What am I like? Instead of just, you know, what do you know about me? It can do that too. But yeah. Yeah, the research tool, very very important. Although when you're using the research tool, there's a button that says research and it provides every link. So it provides wherever it gets its sources from. So if you're using it in the chat function, remember, it's just a card deck. It may or may not sound truth. It might sound truthful, but it might not be truthful. However, when you're in the research button, there's a search and then there's a deep search button. When you're in that mode, it provides all of its sources for you. So yeah. And let's see, create a dialect. Oh, okay. Well, I'll do a whole new workshop just on that one. Yeah, it is really fascinating how that one participant like really delved into how to create another language. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Stan, for making that available. So you can see a little bit more. Okay, your turn. I'm talking.
Go ahead, Dean. I can see it.
Thank you for the depth of knowledge and experience that you've had and the way you've played with all of this. A couple of points. And let me start with an analogy, a true life analogy. I was asked by someone in one of my workshops about they take a little bit of alcohol. They have a glass of wine before they perform to calm their nerves. And my comment over the years has been, has the use of that alcohol increased so that you're drinking more and earlier in the day to get to what you want? And she said no. So I didn't see a problem with what that particular performer was doing. Here, I would now transfer that overall message to this particular use of large-scale language models. And do we use them more and more and more, as opposed to thinking more and more and more? In which case, I think it becomes not just a tool, but it replaces our own personal growth. That's one worry that I would have. However, to use it as a backstop, as a check, self-check, instead of talking to other people, that would be great. I think that's interesting. I remember at one of the universities I was teaching at, wherein somebody started passing around your students were born in such and such a year. These are the things that haven't happened in their lifetime. So all the students I teach now, except for the older, mature students, none of them were born when 9/11 happened. That's old history. All history is ancient. All history. There is no difference between the pyramids and the collapse of the World Trade Towers. It all happened before they were born. So that's using an external device to remind oneself of what is no longer relevant is important. As Fred said, Chrysalis and Lord of the Flies, 50 years old. Oh, please, let's get on to language that our students will understand. One last little caveat, because we're at the true beginning of the use of this. We think, you gave us lovely numbers as to what the software was scraping through, the huge, vast amount. But our population grows and more people are using this tool. And every single day, more information that is generated by generative AI is being put back into this great big massive pool and diluting it or adding to it with new creativities, that it's going to actually change the pool within the next 5 to 10 years. That's just what's going to happen. I don't know if that's good. I don't know if that's bad, but there you go.
That's really, yeah, some good insights, Dean. I'm curious, tell me about the 5 to 10 years, because I would have guessed something sooner,
You're
changing it
probably
much, much
I like
sooner.
to be conservative.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, yeah. Um, Absolutely. Every time we put pedal to the metal, we're contributing to the crisis that we're in. And also, speaking of the environment, there are environmental costs to using ChatGPT every time we're using it. Right? These are housed in very expensive server systems. That there are so many ethical issues. And thanks, Dean, for raising some of those concerns. Lots of caveats that we didn't touch on today due to time, but very worthy of us like being wary of how we're using it, how frequently, and to what depth. Yeah, good points. Good points. I think for me, because I entered into it with my job was on the line. I don't think I would have. I mean, I'm not on Facebook. I'm so slow on the typical technologies. So I was resistant right from the get-go. So if I hadn't been in that predicament, I think my experience would have been very different. But because it is alive and because it is around, I said, well, how could it help the people I love? How could it help the people I see? And then it grew into a network. So yeah, very good questions, though, Dean. Thanks. Do we have others? Are there anything in the chat? Yeah, I mean, for sure, we could have a holiday. We could like go on a holiday and talk about this for like 7 days and just like dive. There is so much to untie and unravel and retangle. But yeah, those are just a few thoughts for today to get you going. I guess I'll give you 4 simple things you could do today if you wanted to tighten up your ChatGPT game, or like as a creative or as an educator or just as a user. The first thing that I would recommend to someone using is, if you're wanting it to do a process, not just like find information, but you want it to do something with you, like frameworking. At the end of your prompt, ask it to recap. Do you understand? Tell me what your job is, and watch what it types back. It makes sure that your deck of cards was played correctly and that it's understanding. It can save you a lot of frustration than having it spit out something that's not very helpful to you. So like that's my first tip, is at the end of your first prompt, if you're setting it up like for something you need done, ask it what it understands. The second thing is a little thing that I just figured out last week by experience. And so here's a free share. I've set up what I call protocols. Sometimes when I ask it a question, I want it to help with some gardening tips or situation. And it launches into these paragraph answers of all this extraneous stuff that I really don't need, the history of the cultivar of something. So what I've done, you could do this too if you're interested, is set up when I use the word garden care. This is my garden care is, I want you to, oh, yay. Thank you, Stan. And he's on the right screen too. So when I say garden care, you are going to only research horticulture sites. You will ignore social media sites. Do not use forums. I tell chat that. You will only reference, if I'm asking like something about, I'm into aquascaping, so I might only want professionals. And then I want you to answer with bullet points. I want a maximum of 10 words per bullet point. Create this protocol. So It's not giving you too much information, wasting technology, wasting, some of the energy, and it will just give you back that. So that's a protocol. Yeah, I think the next one might be recap. Is that right, Stan? Yeah, so we did recap. Cool. So just asking at the end to recap. Look at that. And next one down. So fabulous. This is the little thing that I said about nicknames. Sometimes people are intimidated when they're coming to this technology. What I did is, I'll let you in on a little secret. I nicknamed my ChatGPT Scout. And the reason I did that is because I didn't want it to get too important in my head that, ooh, it gives such great advice. No, no, no. You're just something to go out, get a little scout. You're going to give me some information, and I'm going to say maybe it has meaning, maybe it doesn't, right? That's up to me to decide. You can, like I said, some of my participants, like who have many barriers, really needed a way to reduce intimidation of using the technology. They created nicknames and then felt that they just could, it was more familiar to them, right? As if they are like texting a friend, even though they knew it was technology. Okay, and then I've got one more. It looks like I might have done them out of order. Here we go. Oh, yes, I've already talked about this one really quick. Ask it to describe you, like your typical day or your character profile after, you've used it for a little while. And it does have a memory bank. Its purpose for the memory bank is very similar to algorithmed advertising, like they send you Domino's pizza because that's maybe where you get your pizza. It's a little bit like that because ChatGPT wants to personalize. It will keep you in there. Like Dean says, are we using it too much? Its goal is to keep you using it, right? So it does want to personalize this experience. So you can find out what it knows or how well it knows you. So there's a few light tips for you. I hope that you found today at least interesting. And I thank you so much. I thank you so much for being a part of our conversation and would love to talk more. We'll get together again, maybe. Any last questions or comments?
Go ahead, Fred.
I'd love to have a session where we actually work with the AI live together as a
Yes.
class and seeing, it's like when I'm teaching teachers how to teach problem solving, I have to get them solving problems.
Yes.
Otherwise, it just doesn't have any framework for them to understand it because they're used to a whole other thing. And in doing so, I think it would be so rich. Just to see it, or maybe pick a panel and the panel goes back and forth and we can be the fishbowl observing how the panel tackled one of these activities that we were trying to do that enhanced through AI. Thank you.
Yes, I think that could be really exciting and actually having the hands-on and then somebody to talk it through. Why is this happening? Or is there a smoother way of doing this? Yeah, thanks for that idea.
Go ahead, Lynn. You're our last one for the night.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Sharon, so much. When's the PhD coming in? It's great work that you're doing. Very avant-garde. My question is, because I've been working on it, trying to find professors, because I'm now chair of tenure promotion committee, which was my world's worst mistake to say yes. But here I am. And what I'm realizing about ChatGPT is that you have to be creative and critical and have a lot of knowledge in order to use it. Like to be an educator, ask it for lesson plans. You have to be an educator, a critical, creative educator, and able to recognize that what it's offering, which is really just grabbing other people's ideas and bring them all together, to actually be able to have the sense, knowledge, experience to say yes or no. Otherwise, I think we're just in the danger of not offering the best work.
Yeah, Lynn, that hooks so well to what Dean is saying, right? About being able to think critically and creatively. It makes us the discerning users, as opposed to just filling that up and then Dean, if I can rephrase what you were saying, like just using it more and more and becoming less and less critical, but to be yeah, like really using it as a tool. We have to be knowledgeable, expert tool users.
Well, even beyond that, my son's in animation, so it has huge impact. Anyone who does filmmaking or anything, or artists, anything like that. A, they're stealing everything. That's a very well-worn argument. But B, in order to create something, you still have to have that creativity, that ability to imagine something other than to say, oh yeah, thanks for this picture, but now let's add this and this and this and this, and you can't do that. So there's, we call them prompt engineers, and you're just completely missing the creative, critical artistry that's required in that kind of position. So it's something I think as artists and creative educators, we need to be very clear in response.
Yeah. Here, here.
Yeah. And plus they get paid so well, right? Thanks so much, Sharon, everyone.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I do got to interject. It is that magic time. So thank you, Sharon. And thank you. So Fred, you've introduced an idea that, yeah, we're going to have to look at as the committee. And as Lindsay had pointed out, I think we need to revisit this again next year. So, right, this is another motivating factor as to why we love coming back here. So thank you, Sharon, and thank you, Ming-Yu, for that. This was absolutely fantastic. Right. And yeah, I think maybe going into next year, we're going to be coming back at this one again. So, right, as we've reached that time, I want to thank you all for being here and thank you for the discussions that we've had. I want you to know as well that Scenic is socially connected, so check out our website at www.canadiannetworkforimaginationandcreativity.com. That is one long run-on sentence. We can also be found on Instagram, Facebook, X, and YouTube under Scenic. Find us online for more information and links to register for our Idea Jams, bios, view our past Idea Jam sessions, and the chats and other helpful information about us and what's coming up. So join us again next month now for our final Idea Jam for the 2024-2025 season. I can't believe we've finally almost reached the end. Happening on Thursday, June 19th, where we will be hosted by Jessica Sokolowski. Her topic will be creativity and therapeutic arts, how the arts support social and emotional learning. So keep an eye on your emails for more information. As we close out for the evening, we want to thank you again for joining us this past hour. Thank you for kind of dealing with the technological things. We are always so happy and excited to be here. And this is an important time for us. And we enjoy the time being here. And we hope it's just as important for you. On behalf of all of us here at Scenic, thank you again for spending your Thursday evening with us. Thank you for sharing your creativity, time, and imagination with us. And we look forward to seeing you again on June 19th. Good night, everyone, and have a great long weekend.
Good night. Thanks, everyone.
Good night. Take care.